Hello everybody and welcome back to Poetry Surprises. As you can see, I'm a bit more wrapped up today because there's ferocious wind blowing outside. It is getting towards the end of May and obviously we're heading towards winter already. Anyway, today I'd like to talk about a dream. Now, normally I wouldn't talk about dreams because they're very personal, and although they seem to mean a lot to me or you for the dreams you have, actually once you start talking about them in public, they come across often as nonsense. But this one was interesting and it happened last night, and it's prompted me to read some poems to you because in this dream I'd murdered someone, and when I woke up I remembered that I've had dreams many years apart of a similar kind. Now, firstly, rest assured this, as far as I know, is not true. I've never murdered somebody. So it got me thinking, why? Why have this imagined scenario where there's an incredible degree of guilt associated with an event that in real life you haven't committed? And I started thinking, this is actually a theme for poetry. Well, look at Macbeth. He does murder people, but look at our fascination with a character such as Macbeth, who murders people and then is gradually eroded and worn away by it. Then I started thinking about John Milton and Paradise Lost and the loss of innocence that occurs in that process. And then of course I realised there's a world religion based around the murder of somebody and ongoing guilt thereafter, communal guilt. And I started feeling that maybe this murder story that was playing out in my dream is not so much a real murder, but a process of guilt over time, a communal guilt. And then poetry seemed to be where I should be looking for an answer to why I had this dream in the first place. Poetry is where I go to when I want to learn about the world and I want to learn about me personally. I don't go for facts and figures. I don't want to know why a cold front is rolling in off the Atlantic. That's a kind of knowledge, but it's not the knowledge that really interests me. There's this continuum of knowledge that seems to lie at a deeper level. And I think poetry taps into that. I think the Greeks knew that with all their mysteries. And I think, Keats, when he's with his drowsiness and Lethe Wood's sinking, as we had with the Nightingale poem a couple of weeks ago, that state of semi-somnolent, waking, dreaming, where you can explore links. And I realised that poetry goes into a depth of being that transcends the self. So I realised I didn't actually murder anybody in the real sense, but there is a process in us all of getting to know people, losing them, losing through the seasons, losing through the life cycle. And, you inevitably start thinking then, parents, yes, parents. You lose your parents. And in some ways, one's mother, for example, is the link between you and the past, and she is also linked to the past. And there's this process of shedding and casting off the past and growing into the future. And I think poetry explores this all the time. So what I want to do now is to read you a couple of poems that explore this world where you're not quite sure why you wrote them, but you feel that they have a purpose and they have a sort of power over you that you didn't really realise was there until you wrote the poem. And I'm going to do that in separate recordings because they're quite difficult to just shift into from giving an intro. So this now is the intro, and the poems are coming up. Encounters. It is time to inquire thy fate. Virgil, Aeneid, Book 6. Part 1. It takes so long to say goodbye. I'm on a boat that skirts the coast over an oily sea. The sun is all blue sky, and friends wear champagne toasts towards evening. Making port, shadows gather. Among them my father, Frau, but Ben and light in mood. Like gurgling springs, our laughter whirls up and sings. I've never grinned so broad. He's as I knew him years ago, the man who bounced me on his knee. We hold a long embrace. Stay here, he says, and I, but Dad, you know, then pull my shoulders free. Part 2. We legged it from port, following dusty tracks that climbed to hills. Moving among olive trees, voices. In the houses, cracked like broken teeth in rotten gums, ghosts. I'm afraid of ambush. My mates seem careless as lambs, but I see footprints, signals that belong to neon streets, men that wear hush puppies, ties and braces, angry scowls, women with lips like poppies parading their tango foxtrot, kids hungry for gold, fighters and cowards, victims and bombs, and booze, sad and bitter, lost. Part 3. The air is clammy and the stars are hot. We sit around the fire swatting flies. Some tell stories. I talk of how I met my father at the port. My neighbour shivers, haunted by silent movies from his past. We realise, one by one, this is why we're here, chasing ghosts among cypresses. We toast our fate with warm wine from the Co, and sleep and dream of what we shouldn't know. Part 4. You look at me, eye to eye, and say you fouled, you, too, you who signed your masterwork at the age I reach today, you who made silence sing, account yourself a loss and worse than Gilbert, cooker of books, who dressed his ghosts as truths, or Ron, whose life passed on the post. Where are you leading me? Why this hilltop hamlet in Tuscany, with fat tourists by the pool and spiders in their tawdry webs? Each time I stop, you push me on. Eyes blink behind windows. You shift among the mazy streets, towers, gardens, horseflies, heat, and slick lizards. I pluck a fig, hear a shadow whisper, "Thief!" "Liar!" shouts a skirt that slips around a wall down an alley. "Failure!" calls a blonde boy from a terraced olive grove. You take me to a man who blends shadow and sun, sun and stone, stone and foliage, foliage and fire, fire and rain, then lead me back to camp among the dreaming. 5. I'm on a boat upon the Thames, leaving the sea. Ethereal blue reaches through the starboard window. My father, no longer luminous, knows that I must make for land and leave. We drink a beer, others sit too near. We up and look, each into the other's eyes. Tears wash away his ghost until only sunlight's left, and I walk onto Greenwich Jetty.